Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we're going to be talking about the Leatherman OHT, or the one-handed tool. Now, as the name implies, this is a multi-tool that can be operated completely one-handed. And while it has some features and some interesting things on it that I do like, and especially the one-handed accessibility to all the tools, this is going to be geared towards certain types of people. And the first group is going to be those that inherently like the sliding plier design. So they like those flip out pliers, which is pretty much synonymous with Gerber. And this is sort of Leatherman's take on that design after Gerber's patent ran out. The next group of people that this is going to cater to is the people that have lost a degree of mobility in one of their hands or complete loss of a limb. This is definitely going to fill that void for that person. Now, this is going to be geared a little bit more towards military personnel and first responders personnel. And while there's some things on it that I like a lot, there's some other things that I don't like quite as much. But we'll get into those here in a little while. The first thing we're going to do is go through the specifications, and then we're going to get into the 16 different functions that this multi-tool has to offer. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on what I think the pluses and minuses of this tool are, and then I also want to bring in a couple of other multi-tools that I think might be considered better options when you're looking at the OHT as your EDC. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I've brought in the Leatherman Wave Plus and the Leatherman Surge to flank this multi-tool to kind of give you a basis for it as a size comparison, to kind of show you just how big this multi-tool is. Now, the weight on this is going to be 9.55 ounces is what I weigh it in at. Leatherman actually specs it out for a little higher than that, but I've always weighed it in right around 9.54, 9.55, and that's going to translate to 272 grams. It is the same frame size as a Surge at 4.5 inches, so it is in the heavy-duty multi-tool category, but it's actually one that I don't necessarily consider to be heavy-duty. I think it still falls in, while the frame size would indicate that it would be heavy-duty, I still think it falls into a standard duty because of the tools and the options that it has. The overall width at its widest point is 1 inch and 13/16 or 46 millimeters. And the thickness is 13/16 or about 20 millimeters. So it is a very hefty multi-tool. In fact, the OHT will completely cover the frame of the Leatherman Surge. That's how big it is. So just for a little bit of a size comparison, so you understand how big this multi-tool really is. Well, first of all, I want to say that this multi-tool in today's market, 2019, runs at $90 MSRP, so it's not a cheap multi-tool. We're going to start with the outside. Now, there's two color versions for this. You can get it in this version with coyote tan scales and black tools, or you can get it in black oxide scales with black oxide tools. So two different color versions that it comes in. Now, on the scale, something that they do with the OHT that's unique is that they have these pictograms to detail what tool is underneath. So in this one, we can see that's the straight blade. On the opposite side here, we can see this is our strap cutter. You'll see the wavy pattern here for the serrated blade. And that is kind of a unique feature that they offer in this multi-tool. Also has 832 thread here to accept cleaning rod for firearm cleaning. And then it has the ability to lock out the pliers themselves. So this little tab will turn 9 degrees, and that will lock out the pliers and not allow them to open. Then a simple twist of it back, and you can slide the pliers out. Now, the pliers can open in a variety of different ways. You can just pinch them, slide them open. You can flick them out. Variety of different ways that you can do it. So, and the action on the pliers is very, very smooth, and they are spring loaded. Now, the spring mechanism is pretty robust there in the back, and it's this is a plier that's going to be unique to the OHT. Leatherman doesn't put this in any other multi-tool. Now, with this type of plier design, a lot of times you'll get a lot of flex and movement, and the OHT is not void of flex and movement, but I will say that the tolerances on the OHT are quite a bit tighter than that I've seen from other multi-tools from Gerber that incorporate this design in a lot of their tools. So while it's not completely rattle free and there is some movement to it, it has a pretty decent tolerance. Now there is a little bit of flex in the pliers themselves, but it is negligible. You'll notice that the point on those needle nose comes down to a pretty nice point. I really like those needle nose function on here. So I have your needle nose, your regular pliers, and then 154 cm replaceable cutters and hardwire cutters. Now if we get around to the outside tools, we're just going to go through them. We're not going to really talk about them a whole lot here, but we'll do some comparisons here in just a little while. So the first one is the knife blade. Now this is going to be 420 HC. It's a little short at 2 1/16 of an inch or 52 millimeters. Then on the opposite side here we have our 1/4 inch flat driver, and that is also going to function as a light duty pry tool. Then the next tool over is going to be a combination can opener, bottle cap lifter. You see this design in a lot of Leathermans. Now it does not incorporate a wire stripper in this design like we have in most of the Leatherman lineup, but it does have that same eagle claw design for that opener. Then we have the saw blade. Now much like the knife blades, it's going to be a little short, but the saw blade works exceptionally well. It cuts both in push and pull stroke. The only downside to it is that it is really too short. On the opposite side, we'll get our strap cutter. Now the strap cutter is a 3 combination tool, and this is one of those tools that's going to make this it's kind of appeal to our first responders because it has the integrated strap cutter plus an oxygen wrench, and that can be very helpful for first responders. And then it also integrates a flat driver on the end of that. Then the next tool over is going to be our combination number 1, number 2 Phillips. And then our next tool is going to be our serrated blade. Now the serrated blade, it's the same complaint that I have with the knife blade. It's just too short. Now it is a very good serrated blade, and actually in the serrated blade I don't mind that that's shorter. The main blade I wish was longer. This one I can live with because this blade is going to be used for cutting, the occasional rope or strap, fibrous materials that you're not going to be using them all the time. And it's a decent enough length that it's going to get those jobs done with relative ease. So it has a very good serrated pattern and then draw cut functionality on front as well as the sheep foot front for safety. And that blade is actually really nice. Then the next tool over is going to be our small flat driver. Now this is going to be helpful for optics in firearms. Now personally I think that gearing this towards military, I think that the Mutt is a better option because for your optics you're going to need different wrenches, and the Mutt offers those wrenches that the OHT is not. So this is probably one of those tools that I would like to see removed and maybe something a little different in there. Well, I'm going to bring in a couple of other multi-tools. We're going to talk a little bit about the design, the positives and the negatives of this multi-tool. Well, let's hit on the positives first. Now, the OHT, as its name implies, is a one-handed tool, and Leatherman has accomplished that. They have accomplished what they set out to do, and that is to make this tool completely one-hand operable. The fact that it has spring-loaded pliers, that is very nice as well. That is really nice, actually. They're not as robust as you're going to see in some other multi-tools, but for what it's intended for, it's not the type of tool that's going to be out on a job site where it's going to be seeing, harder use with the pliers. So I think it's fine in this multi-tool. I really like the strap cutter oxygen wrench combination here that they have. Now that is going to be a unique tool that there's a couple of other multi-tools in Leatherman's lineup that incorporate a strap cutter that we're going to bring in here in just a little bit to kind of compare it to. But that is a tool that I really like on this multi-tool as well, and that is one of those that's going to appeal to the first responders among us. The serrated blade, I'm fine with that. I like that length. I think it does its job and does its job efficiently. Now, when talking about the negatives, this is a very big multi-tool. I'm not so much concerned about the weight. At 9.55, 9.6 ounces, it's okay. I'm fine with that. My complaint is about the bulk of it, and this is coming from a guy who uses the Surge. Now, I have fairly large hands, and even for me, this is getting out to the limits of where it's still comfortable for me, but because it's comfortable for me to use, I know for other people it's going to be a little too large. And so the bulk of the handles really make this not the most user-friendly multi-tool. My next complaint is the knife blade, or the knife blade and the saw blade. Now, these are two tools that I think should be full length. I understand what they're trying to do. They're adding more stuff in here. Personally, I would rather eliminate two tools, two of the smaller tools, to give a full length knife blade and a full length saw on this particular multi-tool, because, well, at minimum, a full length knife blade, because I think that's an important tool to have on here. The saw blade, maybe you're not using that quite as much, and for a lot of people, depending on what you need this multi-tool for, you may not use a saw blade at all. But I think we could all agree that the knife blade would be beneficial to have that in full length. So that is another negative that I see with this particular multi-tool. I do like the fact that all the tools are liner locked, and I do like the fact that they're all outside and one-hand accessible. That's a very good feature. I don't really see where, it does have the 832 in there for your cleaning rods. For some people, that's going to be beneficial. For me, it's not going to really matter that much. This is not a type of tool where you could put a bit exchanger in here, so I'm okay with the combination of drivers that they have in here. Personally, I would, if I were to change it, I would actually incorporate this small driver into this tool and just make this driver smaller, eliminate this tool so that I could get a full length knife blade, and then the remaining tools would stay. And I think that would be a decent combination for this. Just that having that short knife blade really kind of detracts for me the usability of this multi-tool. Well, let me bring in a couple of other multi-tools so that we can kind of compare it to some of the other things that are out there. Now, there's a couple of other multi-tools that incorporate the one tool that's sort of unique to the OHT, and that's that strap cutter. So we have that also in the Leatherman Raptor, and you get a different style in the Leatherman Mutt. Now, both of these multi-tools, actually all three of these multi-tools, are what I would consider specialized multi-tools, more so the Mutt and the Raptor. But if you are a first responder, I personally like the Raptor a little better, and I think that you can, with the Raptor and a smaller multi-tool, accomplish pretty much the same thing that you can get out of the OHT, but have a better package, because now you have full size shears to go along with it. The Mutt is very specialized, and that's going to be more towards our gun enthusiast and military personnel. Now, it's not going to cater more towards the first responders among us. My favorite combination for first responders, and I'm not a first responder, and so you have to take this with a grain of salt, but I really think that the best combination for a first responder would be a combination of a Leatherman Raptor and a Leatherman Skeletal RX. I think that is a very, very good combination. But, it's kind of to each their own. But I wanted to show you a couple of the other multi-tools that do incorporate a strap cutter in them as well. Now, if you're looking at the OHT purely from the perspective that you need a one-handed operable tool, I think that the Leatherman P4 is actually a bit better than the OHT for a few different reasons. The first of which is the length of the saw and the blade. So if we kind of bring those in and compare, you can see you get a little bit more length in the saw, but the blade is where it really shines. So you're getting an additional 3/8 of an inch blade on it. And they're both going to be in 420 high carbon steel, so you're not really gaining an advantage one over the other with the blade steels. There's also a couple of other things in the P4 that make it a little bit more appealing if you're only looking at it from a one-hand operable use situation. Now, just a couple quick comparisons between the free P4 and the OHT. Now, one's going to have tools that the other doesn't have. The first of which is the strap cutter is going to come on the OHT, and you're not going to get that on the P4. But the P4 is also going to come with scissors that you're not going to get on the OHT. As far as driver capabilities, they're pretty well equal, although they do utilize a little bit different design on their can opener and bottle cap lifters. The P4, I think, has a better overall tool set. Now, it's going to cost about $50 more than the OHT, but it's also going to give you that one-handed operation. Now, this next one might be the determining factor for you, and that's the fact that the OHT is going to be spring-loaded, where the P4 is not. P4, and the P4 is not perfect. It definitely has some things that they need to iron out in the new free P4. So hopefully in the next generations of the P4, or hopefully sooner than that, before they even hit the next generations, they've worked out these little kinks and can make the P4 a bit more appealing. But it does offer the same one-handed operation. So two things that you're going to get in the OHT that you're not going to be able to get in the free P4. That's going to be a spring-loaded pliers, and you're going to get the strap cutter, oxygen wrench, and screwdriver combination. Those may be two things that are inherently important to you. So when looking at the OHT, there's a couple things to consider. Well, my thoughts on the OHT. First of all, I think for this tool to be a viable option for you, you have to put a high level of importance on everything being one-hand accessible. And I'm not talking just about the pliers, even though the pliers are probably the best one-hand accessible pliers that Leatherman makes. Pretty much any tool in their lineup is actually one-hand operable, because Leatherman tools will break in quite nicely. I've seen that. I've done it with the Wave. I've done it with the Surge. They'll break in just fine. And so if you're only looking at the pliers from a one-hand operable, that the one tool that you need to be one-handed operable, then I think that you might want to look at other multi-tools, because they're going to offer a more complete and more robust tool set to complement the pliers. Now, if you are looking for all of the multi-tool implements to be one-hand accessible, I think that the P4 is actually the better option. And I'm not big on the P4 for a lot of different reasons when comparing it to like the Wave or the Surge, or for that matter even the Super Tool 300 or Rebar. I think it probably outclasses the Rebar just a little bit, but it comes at a much higher price tag as well. So the price has to be something that you consider as well. I think that from a one-handed perspective, I can actually probably get more done with the free P4, and it's a bit more comfortable to carry, and it has the option to carry with pocket clip. Now, you're not going to be able to get it in black oxide yet, but you kind of have to weigh your options. It depends who it's marketed for, because the OHT has a wide variety of people that it might appeal to. So depending on what niche you're in will determine whether or not the OHT might be right for you.